What is the center of an atom called, and what is it made of? What orbits the center of the atom?
Oh, classic, an oldie but a goodie. This is a topic that would probably be covered in basic chemistry class, perhaps a physics class, depending on your teacher and how they'd be going over things. So an atom or atoms compose all matter in the universe. That's sort of a general concept in science. And atoms themselves are made of 3 particles. Doesn't matter what atom you're talking about, all atoms are made of the same 3 particles, just in different quantities. So those 3 particles are the proton, the neutron, and the electron. If we could jump to my screen really quick, I'll just show a diagram. So this is a simplified diagram of an atom. It's sort of the classic view of an atom that we see. You can see in the center, we have some red balls and some blue balls with pluses on them. So the balls with pluses on them represent protons. Protons are particles with a positive charge. They also have an atomic mass unit of 1. The red balls here are neutrons. Neutrons are similar to protons in terms of their mass and location, but different in that they have no charge. So protons and neutrons each have a mass of 1 atomic mass unit, and they both occupy the space called the atom or atomic nucleus. And nucleus is a word that generally means the center of something. It comes from an old word that means seed. And so we use nucleus to talk about the center of an atom. We also use it in biology to talk about the area in the cell that holds all the DNA. So sometimes people get confused there because it's nucleus used twice, but nucleus just again means sort of the center area. Around the nucleus, you can see we have these circles that are drawn here. They're meant to represent what are called orbitals. And circling on those orbitals are little particles called electrons. So electrons weigh much, much, much less than protons. Not that protons weigh very much compared to on a human scale, but electrons weigh significantly less, and they have a negative charge. And they do not occupy the nucleus. Again, they orbit around the nucleus. And although in this picture, it definitely looks like they're orbiting pretty close, actually the distance between the nucleus and the electrons is extremely great. It's not great, again, relative to the size of a human, but relative to the size of the electron and the nucleus of the atom, it's a really great distance. Again, this is a simplified view of what an atom looks like, and it's generally how we learn about it. But today, we know that electrons don't really orbit in nice circles like planets orbiting the sun. Electrons actually occupy regions of space, and depending on what orbital you find the electrons in, so we find that there are electrons that are closer to the nucleus of the atom, that are in lower energy orbitals, and then we find that there are electrons that are further away, that are in outer orbitals. And depending on the orbital that an electron occupies, they occupy sort of a different area of space, a different almost shape of space. This is a probability distribution for some basic types of atoms that contain only a few electrons. And what you can see here are just some basic types of shapes that describe the probability or the areas where you are likely to find, I should say, an electron in that orbital. So you can see in the 1s orbital, it's sort of just a spherical region. The 2s orbital, it's a spherical region that's much greater, but you can get, depending on the orbital that you find the electron in, you can get some really interesting regions of space that the electrons take up. So actually picturing what an atom really looks like is kind of difficult. And in fact, atoms are so small that they don't reflect light individually the same way that other things do. So if you could somehow, if we could like blow up an atom to look at it, it wouldn't look the same as it does at its own level, which is something that we can only really conceptualize of. So, but anyways, back to the original question, the 2 things in the center are those protons and neutrons, and the stuff going around the outside, those are again called the electrons.